I never intended for anyone to read my journal. It was my safe space, the only place where I could truly be myself without fear of judgment or rejection. I've always been a private person, someone who keeps their thoughts locked away, but that journal was where I let it all out. Every feeling, every secret, every part of myself that I wasn't ready to share with the world. And especially not with my roommate, Jake. Jake and I had been living together for almost a year when it happened. We met through a mutual friend during our sophomore year of college and decided to rent an apartment together for our junior year. On paper, we were complete opposites. Jake was the definition of a social butterfly, captain of the lacrosse team, always surrounded by friends, and never seemed to have a care in the world. He had this infectious laugh that could fill our entire apartment, and this uncanny ability to make friends with literally anyone he met. The kind of guy who would strike up a conversation with the cashier at the grocery store and somehow leave with their life story and an invitation to their cousin's wedding. I, on the other hand, was much more reserved. I preferred quiet evenings with a book or binge-watching shows on Netflix. I had my small circle of close friends, but large social gatherings always left me feeling drained. Despite our differences, Jake and I got along surprisingly well. We had similar tastes in music and movies, and we both took our studies seriously. We had fallen into a comfortable routine of coexistence, respecting each other's space and privacy. At least, that's what I thought. My journal wasn't anything special to look at, just a plain black notebook that I kept on my desk or in my backpack. I wrote in it almost daily, pouring out my thoughts, my fears, my dreams, and yes, my feelings. Feelings that I wasn't ready to share with anyone, especially not Jake. Because somewhere along the line, between late-night study sessions and early morning coffee runs, between heated debates about movies and comfortable silences on the couch, I had developed feelings for my very straight roommate. I know, the classic gay cliché, falling for the straight best friend. I was well aware of how pathetic it sounded. That's why I kept it to myself, confined to the pages of my journal. I never intended to act on these feelings. I valued our friendship too much to risk making things awkward. So I wrote instead, hoping that by putting these emotions on paper, I could somehow release them from my system. Let me take you back to that fateful day when everything changed. It was a Friday afternoon in late October. The fall semester was in full swing, and midterms had just wrapped up. I had an early class that morning while Jake had the day off. When I returned to our apartment around noon, I found Jake sitting at our kitchen counter, a cup of coffee in one hand and my journal in the other. The moment I walked through the door, I knew something was wrong. There was a tension in the air that hadn't been there before. Jake looked up at me, and the expression on his face, I'll never forget it. It was a mixture of confusion, surprise, and something else I couldn't quite place. My heart dropped to my stomach as my eyes landed on the black notebook in his hands. My journal, my private thoughts, my secrets. Jake, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. What are you doing with that? He closed the journal slowly, placing it on the counter between us like it was some kind of evidence. I found it on the floor by the couch, he explained. I thought it was one of my notebooks for class. I opened it to check, and his voice trailed off, and he ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit I had come to recognize over the past year. How much did you read? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the panic rising in my chest. Just a line or two, he said, but the way he couldn't meet my eyes told me it was enough. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to invade your privacy. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to yell at him for violating my trust, for crossing a boundary that should never have been crossed. But all I could feel was fear. Fear of what he might have read. Fear of what he might think of me now. Fear that our friendship, our comfortable coexistence, was about to shatter into a million pieces. Which part? I asked, needing to know exactly what he had seen. There were so many entries, so many confessions, so many private thoughts that were never meant for his eyes. Jake hesitated, and in that hesitation, I felt my world tilting on its axis. The part where you said you've been falling for me since the night we stayed up watching that stupid horror movie marathon, he finally said, his voice quiet, but clear in the stillness of our apartment. I remember that night so vividly. It was during a thunderstorm back in March. The power had gone out in our building, and we had decided to use Jake's laptop to watch horror movies until the battery died. We had huddled together under a blanket on the couch, the glow of the screen illuminating our faces in the darkness. Jake had grabbed my arm during a particularly scary scene, and for just a moment, I had felt something shift between us, or at least, I thought I had. That night had found its way into my journal the next day, a full page of confused feelings and wishful thinking. And now Jake knew. He knew about the feelings I had been desperately trying to hide. He knew about the thoughts that kept me awake at night. He knew about the secret I had been carrying for months. "I'm sorry," I said automatically, though I wasn't entirely sure what I was apologizing for. For having feelings? For writing them down? For not being a better keeper of my own secrets? "Don't apologize," Jake said, pushing the journal towards me across the counter. "You didn't do anything wrong." But things were different after that day. How could they not be? The ease that had once characterized our friendship was replaced by an awkward tension that seemed to follow us around our apartment. Jake started spending more time away from home, claiming he needed to study at the library or hang out with his teammates. When we were both home, our conversations became stilted, filled with long pauses and careful words. I noticed the small changes in his behavior first. The way he would maintain a physical distance between us when we watched TV, making sure we weren't accidentally touching. The way he would change in the bathroom now instead of in our shared bedroom. The way his eyes would sometimes linger on me when he thought I wasn't looking, as if he was trying to figure something out. Every interaction felt loaded with unspoken words. I found myself overthinking every conversation, analyzing every gesture, looking for signs of disgust or discomfort. Was he repulsed by me? Was he afraid I would make a move on him? Was he trying to figure out how to ask me to move out without making it awkward? The uncertainty was driving me crazy. I stopped writing in my journal altogether, too afraid of what might happen if my thoughts were discovered again. I started spending more time away from the apartment as well, creating a schedule that minimized our time together. It was exhausting, this dance of avoidance, but I didn't know how else to handle the situation. About 2 weeks after the incident, I came home late from a study group to find Jake sitting on the couch, waiting for me. The TV was off, and there were 2 beers on the coffee table. I knew immediately that this was it, the conversation I had been dreading. "We need to talk," he said as I dropped my backpack by the door. I nodded, my throat suddenly dry. I took a seat on the opposite end of the couch, maintaining the distance that had become our new normal. "This isn't working," Jake said, gesturing between us. "This whole avoiding each other thing. It's making everything weird, and I hate it." "I know," I admitted. "I'm sorry. I don't know how to fix it." Jake took a deep breath, and I braced myself for whatever was coming next. "Look, I'm not going to pretend I wasn't surprised by what I read," he said. "I had no idea you felt that way about me." "It doesn't have to change anything," I rushed to say. "I never planned to act on it. I know you're straight, and I value our friendship too much to mess it up with my feelings." Jake was quiet for a moment, considering my words. "The thing is," he finally said, "it already has changed things. Not because of your feelings, but because of how we've both been handling this situation." He wasn't wrong. Our friendship had been fundamentally altered the moment he read those words in my journal. There was no going back to the blissful ignorance of before. "I've been doing a lot of thinking these past couple of weeks," Jake continued. "About you, about me, about our friendship. And I realized something important. I miss my friend. I miss our late-night conversations and our stupid arguments about whether cereal is a soup. I miss the way things were before all this awkwardness." I felt a glimmer of hope at his words. Maybe our friendship wasn't beyond repair after all. "I miss that too," I admitted. "So here's what I propose," Jake said, leaning forward slightly. "Let's just put it all out there. No more secrets. No more walking on eggshells around each other. You have feelings for me, okay? I can't return those feelings in the same way, but that doesn't mean I care about you any less as a friend." His directness caught me off guard. I had expected disgust, or at the very least, discomfort. But Jake was approaching this with a maturity I hadn't anticipated. "Are you sure?" I asked. "It doesn't make you uncomfortable, knowing how I feel?" Jake thought about it for a moment. "It's not that it doesn't make me uncomfortable at all," he said honestly. "It's more that I value our friendship enough to work through that discomfort. Because the alternative, losing you as a friend, seems a lot worse." His words hit me hard. In all my worrying about his reaction, I hadn't considered that Jake might be just as afraid of losing our friendship as I was. "I need to know something, though," Jake said, his expression serious. "Are you okay with just being friends? Because if these feelings are too strong, If being around me is going to be painful for you, then maybe we need to reconsider our living situation. I don't want to be the cause of your unhappiness. It was a fair question, and one I had asked myself many times over the past few months. Could I be content with friendship when I wanted more? Could I set aside my romantic feelings for the sake of preserving what we already had? I've thought about that a lot, I told him. And yes, I can be just your friend. These feelings, they'll fade eventually. But our friendship, what we've built over this past year, that's real and valuable to me. I don't want to lose that. Jake nodded, seeming relieved. Good, because I don't want to lose it either. That conversation marked a turning point for us. It didn't immediately fix everything. There were still moments of awkwardness, still times when I caught myself staring a little too long, or when Jake seemed hyper-aware of our physical proximity. But we were talking again, laughing again, slowly finding our way back to the friendship we had before. What surprised me most in the weeks that followed was how Jake made an effort to understand. He asked questions about when I knew I was gay, about my experiences coming out to my family, about the challenges I faced that he, as a straight man, had never had to consider. He listened without judgment, absorbing my answers with genuine curiosity and empathy. I never realized how much energy it takes to hide a part of yourself, he said one night after I had shared stories about my high school years, about the constant fear of being discovered. That must have been exhausting. It was, I admitted. That's why the journal was so important to me. It was the one place where I didn't have to hide. Jake winced slightly at the mention of the journal. I really am sorry about that, he said. I should have put it down as soon as I realized it wasn't mine. I know, I said. But in a weird way, maybe it was for the best. At least now everything is out in the open. And it was true. As painful and awkward as the whole situation had been, it had forced a level of honesty between us that might not have happened otherwise. I no longer felt the need to carefully monitor my words and actions around Jake, afraid of giving away my feelings. He knew, and he had accepted me anyway. About a month after our big conversation, Jake came home from a party earlier than expected. I was in the living room, watching a movie, and he plopped down next to me on the couch. Why'd you leave so early? I asked, surprised to see him home before midnight on a Friday. The party was lame, he said with a shrug. Plus, I'd rather hang out with you. There was something in his voice, a sincerity that caught me off guard. Really? Yeah, he said, grabbing a handful of the popcorn from the bowl on my lap. Is that so hard to believe? I thought about it for a moment. A little, yeah? You've got all these friends who adore you, parties where you're the center of attention. And I'm just me. Jake turned to look at me, his expression suddenly serious. You know what I realized recently? Most of those people don't really know me. They know the version of me that plays lacrosse and goes to parties. But you know the real me. The one who cries at dog commercials and is secretly terrified of failing my classes. You see me, the whole me, and you still like me anyway. His words touched something deep inside me. Of course I do, I said softly. That's rare, Jake said. To be truly seen and accepted. I didn't realize how rare until I almost lost it with you. We fell into a comfortable silence after that, watching the movie together, sharing the popcorn. And in that moment, I felt something shift inside me. The ache of unrequited feelings was still there, but alongside it was a profound appreciation for what we did have. A friendship built on mutual respect, understanding, and now, complete honesty. Over the next few months, our friendship not only recovered, but deepened in ways I hadn't expected. Jake became one of my biggest supporters when I decided to start dating again, even offering to be my wingman at a gay bar, an experience that was both hilarious and surprisingly successful. And I was there for him when he went through a tough breakup with his girlfriend, providing late-night ice cream and terrible movie recommendations to distract him from his heartache. The journal that had almost destroyed our friendship became a symbol of our growth. Jake bought me a new one for my birthday, a leather-bound notebook with my initials embossed on the cover. For all the thoughts you want to keep private, he said with a wink. I promise not to read this one. Looking back now, I realized that what happened with my journal and Jake was a turning point in my life. It taught me the value of vulnerability, even when it's scary. It showed me that sometimes the people we fear will reject us are capable of more understanding than we give them credit for. And most importantly, it reminded me that true connection, whether romantic or platonic, is built on honesty, acceptance, and the courage to be seen for who we really are. I still have feelings for Jake sometimes, I don't think those ever completely go away. But they've transformed into something different, something that coexists peacefully with our friendship rather than threatening it. I've learned that love comes in many forms, and sometimes the love of a true friend is just as valuable as romantic love. As for Jake, he continues to surprise me with his growth. Last semester, he joined the LGBTQ+ ally group on campus, saying he wanted to better understand the challenges faced by the community. When I asked him why, he simply said, "Because you matter to me, and this matters to you." It's moments like that when I'm reminded of how fortunate I am to have him in my life, not as the straight roommate I once pined for, but as the extraordinary friend who saw all of me, journal confessions and all, and chose to stay. The line he read in my journal could have been the end of our story, but instead, it became the beginning of a deeper, more authentic chapter. And for that, I am endlessly grateful. If there's one thing I've learned from this experience, it's that the people who are meant to be in your life will find a way to stay, even when things get complicated. Sometimes it's the very complications, the messy, uncomfortable moments of truth, that create the strongest bonds. So if you're hiding a part of yourself from someone you care about, if you're carrying the weight of unspoken words, consider the possibility that bringing those words into the light might not end in disaster. It might be difficult, it might be awkward, it might temporarily change the dynamic of your relationship, but it might also lead to a connection more genuine than anything you've experienced before. After all, we can never truly be loved for who we are if we never allow ourselves to be seen. And sometimes, the risk of being seen is worth taking, even when the outcome isn't exactly what we hoped for. Because sometimes, like in my case with Jake, what we get instead is something we didn't even know we needed. A friendship strong enough to weather any storm, including the unexpected discovery of a private journal and the secrets it contained. Total _char_count, 18,736.